All right. So welcome back to Triggered AF, the podcast. I hope you enjoyed our last 3 episodes. We are now on episode 4. And I know many of you are probably wondering, you guys said there'd be some disagreements. When are those going to happen? Well, welcome.
Yes, the disagreements do happen. They're actually pretty rare though, right? I want to say like overall.
Yeah, they really are pretty rare. We have done, I think, a great job of aligning on our baseline values.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point. But I feel like that's maybe how I think close friendships, I feel like you kind of maybe have to have similar baseline values.
Yeah, the baseline kind of needs to be the same.
Kind of.
Just a little bit. It needs to definitely be the same.
But this is a baseline. It would be considered kind of a baseline that we do disagree on, like a major baseline, right? So that's kind of interesting.
It is. And what we're talking about, to let you guys in on the secret, is this episode is about religion versus spirituality.
Yeah.
And we are going to dive deep into a discussion. We even have a phenomenal guest. He is a pastor. He's a really dope human being. His energy is unmatched. And we are going to bring him in so that we can jump right on into the conversation. Y'all know we don't mince words, but we are always ever so respectful. So I would like to welcome, and actually, you know what, Dani? I want you to welcome him because you do it better. So I want you to do it.
All right. So we are bringing on pastor, entrepreneur, international recording artist. I'm sure there's going to be lots more titles I can add to that as the years go on. Most importantly, he is family. He is my cousin. And I thought he was such a great guest for this topic because he has, even though he is in the church world and he is a pastor, he has a really great perspective when it comes to and religion, and we have these deep conversations that I just thought the world needed to hear a little bit of because we literally are on the phone for like 5 hours at a time. So welcome, Shane, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invite.
So I told you that I was going to bring you on, that we wanted to have you on because I just love your perspective. And I think you also have a really good way of breaking down very complex things so that like the most uninformed person or someone that doesn't understand can grasp it. I think you're really good at that, like just making everything really simple.
Well, the Bible says in all that get understanding.
Hello. That's my favorite. I think that's my favorite Bible.
I feel like most of the issues that people have comes from a lack of understanding and an influx of gross misinformation, especially when it comes to, the Bible, religion, spirituality, all of that.
So, Alechia, I wanted, because this is just so that you guys can know where we're disagreeing. Alechia, what are your views when it comes to religion?
Religion is just not something I practice. I believe that it works for others. And I believe that, other people should do absolutely what works for them. But for me, it's not something that works for me. And it's not something that I desire to have any dealings with. I get it for others, but it is an absolute hard stop no for me.
Okay. And I know that we've had this conversation before, but again, we're kind of sharing with our audience.
Yeah.
You did grow up in a more so religious space, correct? Like your upbringing?
Yeah, I was raised super religious, borderline cult-like. And for me, just my experiences with religion and how it was played out, how it was interpreted, how the people who I grew up around acted. It's just something that I did not want to be a part of. I did not want to introduce to my daughter the way in which it was introduced to me or any of the other children that I have. It's a no for me, fam. I'm a firm believer in God.
That was going to be my next question. What is it that you are, or if anything, do you believe in anything, or what's kind of your? Okay.
Absolutely. I believe in God. I even believe, that Jesus is the Son of God, but I have no desire to participate in any of the religions around that. I am more so spiritual. And for me, honestly, I've always been one, because for me, what religion represents is kind of like a group practice, a group of people who believe in like a specific set of like practices, rituals, and they do those things together, in a community or in a group. But I have always been against group think. Like that is just always my personality. If everybody was doing it 9 times out of 10, I don't want to do it. So for me, I prefer spirituality because it's more of an individual practice. It allows you to tap into you, and it focuses more on peace and purpose, rather a ritualistic type of thing. And for me, that has worked far better in terms of my levels of peace and my output. For me, religion it has always had I've always had a negative experience with religion. So I choose not to subject myself to things that don't make sense.
So you said that you grew up in a certain like a religious environment, and you don't want to participate in that expression. Are you open to any other expressions of I guess what you call religion or organized any type of organized religion? The reason why I'm asking is because like when you look at the landscape of church right now, it's completely different than what it was 15, 20 years ago, which, I'm not trying to date you, not trying to say how old you are or not.
Oh, I'll tell my age. I don't have no problem. 35.
There you go. So that's what I'm saying. So I'm, the experience that you have was some 20 years ago, at least. And what church is now is becoming, or it has for a long time actually become a lot more leaning towards the spiritual expression more so than the religious expression. Now, to be clear, I'm a big fan of both because I think both are necessary. I think religion is necessary because of the discipline that it provides. I don't think, I think trying to get someone who is, say, for instance, new to spirituality to maintain a relationship with God is like trying to get a child to be married. That's what I feel like. And I feel like in order for you to truly have a successful relationship, you need guidelines and instructions to kind of help to guide you into your space. Now, I will say a lot of religion guide you into their space, into their box of what it is that they feel, which I completely understand. But I do see an influx of churches and religious groups that are really centered around having a personal experience with God. However, having also the accountability, the discipline, the certain practices, and certain group thought processes that I think are necessary for any individual's development.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm more so as well. And this is where Alechia and I disagree, because I also believe that there needs to be some element of ritualism. For me, it's not necessarily like a specific religion that needs to be in place, but I do believe that the rituals are what provide the discipline to have that connection. So my belief is that we are disconnected. I like to say that you're not lost trying to find yourself. You're disconnected from the higher power, whether it's because of the environment, whether it's your traumas, whether it's programming. I mean, there's just so many ways that we disconnect from our higher selves, which is disconnecting from a higher power. And I know that in order for us to kind of reconnect, it takes steps. Like it's not just plug and play. It takes like a couple, like you need to know how to still your mind. You need to be, you need to vibe in a higher space. Like there's so much that needs to go into place. I don't believe that it just happens like that. And then that makes it spirituality. There has to be something that's in place that you do consistently. It's like exercising. You don't just get a 6-pack. You got to go to the gym. You got to eat a certain way. There's certain things that must be in place for you to get that result. And I'm not really understanding when I hear someone say, oh, I'm spiritual, but there's nothing that you're doing to connect. And there's that for me is where I get disconnect. That's where the confusion comes in for me when someone says, oh, I'm spiritual, but there's nothing in place to facilitate the spirituality.
Well, I don't necessarily believe that you have to be connected to a religion in order to be spiritual. That to me is not factual, because just because I say I don't practice a religion, because a religion, like I said, in my opinion, means, okay, based on, and not even just my opinion, by definition, is based on what we believe, whether you are Buddhist, Christian, whatever, whether you practice Islam, whatever your religion is, it's okay, based on these set of beliefs, this is how we as a group of people practice. And I am saying I do not require or believe that piece is needed in order to connect to God. Even in the Bible, it says God is within you, explore it.
Well, let's do this then, because since you just said what religion is, let's actually define it, what it is, the definition is. So it says that religion is the belief in and worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal God or gods. So that is the actual definition. It doesn't necessarily require a group per se. It does have a particular system in there.
That's not dictionary.com's definition of it.
Really? That's what I'm on. What do you have?
Positive. It says it is a set of beliefs concerning the cause, nature, and purpose of the universe, especially when considered as the creation of a superhuman agency or agencies, usually involving devotional and ritual observances, and often containing a moral code governing the conduct of human affairs. A specific fundamental set of beliefs and practices generally agreed upon by a number of persons or sects. That is dictionary.com's definition. And for me, it's that person and sex, and it is that I have to adhere to what this group of people says, and I am not okay with that. I wasn't okay with it when I was a child being forced to do it. And for me, in my experiences, people sometimes stop thinking and using common sense because what the religion says they should do. When I was a child, there was, rampant molestation. There was lots of abuse. And I'm not talking about things that I heard. I'm talking about things that I experienced, from being slapped in front of people, from being fought by adults, from being not protected, from money being abused. Like, for me, no amount, and I've done the therapy, I'm no longer angry. I'm not hurt. I forgive my parents for all of the things that I experienced as a result of how they chose to practice religion. But it took me literally to the brink of suicide, and how I chose to select partners and feel about myself. For me, religion almost broke me. And so because of that experience, I refuse to put my child or anyone that I love in a position to where they cannot think for themselves. I absolutely teach her about God and about, the beautiful nature and what it feels like to connect to God and to connect to source and to know yourself on an intimate level, understanding the power that he's given you. But I absolutely refuse to become a part of a religion to do so.
I think that just even based on what you're saying, I think that there is a disconnect as far as the nature of religion versus man's interpretation and expression of religion. Here's the thing. You have certain group of individuals. You have, everybody, the very, very famous Westboro Baptist Church. They're the ones with the signs, God hates fags and all the stuff here, whatever the case is. Most churches and most individuals, I've never run into somebody to be like, yo, I'm finna go to Westboro right quick, hang out. You know what I'm saying? It's never, I've never run into that. I think there is the principles of the Word of God and the Bible and just any particular religion. Every religion has certain principles, and then you have practices. And the thing is, those practices vary depending on where it is that you go. You know what I mean? Growing up in Jamaican Pentecostal Apostolic versus in a non-denominational, don't confuse apostolic with apostolic, two different things. But
it is. It really is.
Yeah, apostolic and apostolic, two different things. But anyways, to go into a non-denominational church, to being a part of a Baptist organization for a while, to, going to more of a church of a Caucasoid nature, you'll see, like, that's one of the things that always was fascinating to me, because it's like, okay, which one of these is actually God? Is God knocking over the benches and falling over, or is God, just holding your hand straight in the air, jumping up and down? Is, like, which one of these expressions of is God? And what I realize is that God is one thing that my pastor always say. In the beginning, God created man, and then man turned around and did him the favor, meaning that God is oftentimes filtered through our culture, through our backgrounds, and so on and so forth. That's why when you have individuals of an African descent, their expression towards God involves a lot of dancing. You look at any black church, it surrounds dancing, where there's going to be very choreographed, shuffle the feet, do the arm thing like this and here, which I never learned. I just couldn't get. Or it is, or it's going to be something a little bit more wild, feeling of the hand, but it's all surrounding dancing. When you look at the individuals, of a lighter nature, their expression is different as well. You get what I'm saying? So I think the problem, and this is what I've always found, the problem is rarely ever the Bible. The problem is rarely ever God. The problem is rarely ever the actual religion itself. The problem is always individuals' interpretation and expression of that religion. And that is why that's why I say that we have to make sure that we're not looking at this one expression of what religion is and to say, okay, well, that's it. You know what I mean? It's like all preachers are about the money, when less than a percent of actual churches, pastors actually make money from those churches. You know what I mean? It's like there's stereotypes and there's reality. There is one experience versus what the mass is. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, unfortunately, if a young lady gets raped by a big black guy, then all big black guys now become threats, when the fact of the matter is that most of them are not. You know what I mean? And so it's one of those situations where I think when it comes to religion, the expression of religion, and how you view religion, I think it has to be viewed on an individualistic basis more so than a grouping to say, well, this is how religion is versus that, because you know what I mean? Look how many denominations we have. Just within one scripture gives you so many different denominations. And I'm sure in Buddhism, there's different sects of Buddhists, there's different sects of Confucianism, there's different sects of whatever religion it is you ascribe to. There are different expressions of that, because you have the Buddhists who are monks. You know what I mean? We feel like all Buddhists are monks or whatever the case is.
They're not.
You know what I mean? Tina Turner's over here and I'm your Renge Hoenn. You know what I mean? Like, it's so it's like, I think we ought not to get caught into our experience, because I mean, my church experience throughout my life has been, I'm cool with it. It hasn't been necessarily abusive, but it's been very extremely restrictive. I remember getting in trouble for going to the movies because we give the devil money. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, well, Jesus don't own McDonald's, and we went there yesterday. But
like, where's the devil really? Like, which one?
You know what I mean? As an adult, I realized the reason for those restrictions was to, just like you give your daughter restrictions. You don't give her restrictions because for no other reason than you actually want to protect her, you want to care for her, you want to love her. How many parents make mistakes just trying to protect and to guide children into who they feel they should be. But if they should ever have an understanding that these children don't belong to you, your job is not to make them into something. Your job is to help them to find who they are. That's your job as a parent. But
Absolutely.
most parents don't know that. Most parents have no idea that that's what it is. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to religion and church. Most churches have no idea that you're supposed to help people to find God, not give them God, not tell them how God is and whatever. You know, everybody's experience with God is different. And I think it's been that way from the foundation. That's why you have so many different, you know, expressions of God, i.e. religions, even going back in the day, where you have like your Greek gods and your Roman gods and your Egyptian gods and your Persian gods and so on and so forth. And aside from the idolatry within those religions, I believe that most of those are just people's best interpretation based on where they're from, based on what they've been exposed to, as to who God is. Like the sun moves from there to there. From what I know, somebody has to move it. Because if I put a rock down and nobody moves it, it doesn't move. So the sun, there has to be a guy with a chariot, because you can't just walk it across. There has to be a guy with a chariot. He threw some chains on there, and that's how this moves. Oh, this lightning thing, somebody had to throw it. You can't just get lightning. You know, nobody throws lightning. And I think that's, and then we name those experiences, and that's how we get our Greek God. That's how we get our different gods, and that's how we get our different belief systems based. You know, we saw a guy riding a horse for the first time. It's half man, half horse. No, it's just based on where you are mentally at that moment. That is what your expression of God is. That is what your expression of human religion is. And as you grow, just like humanity has grown, it changes. And I think to get caught in 20 years ago, shoot, at this rate, the way things are going now, to get caught in 5 years ago is an injustice to yourself.
Yeah, but I don't think it's necessarily being caught, because so as women, right? Yes, there is actually now a movement that teaches, it doesn't teach women to wear longer clothes so you don't get raped. It's teaching men, hey, how about this? Here's a genius idea. Just don't take things that don't belong to you, that have not been consented to give to you, right? So even with that new, but let me say what I'm saying. Even with that new thought process and ideology, women still know at night it's just maybe not smart to walk in certain places, because
in booty shorts, like may go well.
Yeah, like it may or may not work well for you. It might not be the best outcome. So for me, I absolutely agree with you that things in religion are changing. There are so many pastors and preachers who are now understanding that instead of just, you know, hey, let's do this building fund that's going to last for 40 years and we never actually build a building. Let's educate you with some financial literacy so that you can make even more money and make even more investments to build and buy properties. I absolutely agree that things are changing. And I think that that is so beautiful and so wonderful. But I am the woman who is going to say, I'm still not going to be wearing short shorts around dark alleys walking home. Again, because of my experience. If my daughter decides tomorrow that she wants to go to church, I will drop her off like I drop her off everywhere else that I allow her to go. Will I go with her? Probably not. Will she be allowed to, you know, be a part of certain ministries that require her to invest time alone with people that I don't know? Probably not. However, I will absolutely allow it, because I too believe that you don't own children. You don't own people. You don't own anybody. Everybody is here for a specific purpose and a specific reason. I am not saying at all that I feel like nobody should have religion, because I don't believe that. I think religion has a place, and it's just for me. It doesn't have a place for me. Like I'm good.
So going back to my point with why I think a religious component is useful in spirituality. Based on your upbringing, and regardless of how you feel about it now, Alechia, you did have principles and a foundation that was given from religion that gave you the tools and taught you what it does mean to connect. However jaded the situation became because of the individuals within that space that did not express God in his fullness at all, clearly, and did not have the correct understanding, the limited understanding of what it meant to have a relationship with God. You still were given a foundation and an understanding of a higher being, and that a connection was required. And you were given tools, and with your understanding of the Bible, because you've told me that you've read the Bible several times. So there's no way that you can like read the Bible and not feel like you have some better understanding of the higher power, right? Because it's supposedly his words and his communication through humans per se. So my point in that is, because you already have that foundation, it does make it a little easier for you to flex. If I don't know if that's the best word, like, because you're already like a professional, or because you already, you know what I mean? It's like, you already know how to do it. So now you have the room to say, I believe that, but I'm going to take this, or I'm going to do it this way and not that way, because you're already so well versed. So now you have the choice to say, you know what? I know about this, so I'm on the left by the wayside, because that doesn't work for me, which is what you've done essentially, because you do still believe in something. You just don't necessarily employ things that were taught to you that no longer work for you. My point is that there are people that don't have any of that foundation. And I find that we're talking this spirituality around, but everybody is still so disconnected. And it's obvious that we're disconnected based on the depression rates, based on suicide rates, based on, you could just look at Instagram and see that we are suffering as a people, because we don't really have the spirituality that I see people talking about. There's no way that we're so woke and spiritual and having this human experience. I feel like it's pretty impossible to connect to your highest self and also still be having such a hard time living life.
So I think for me, that is indicative of being a part, especially in America, of a capitalistic society, because capitalism requires you to put in more hours, to produce more, to make more money, but it robs you of your time, i.e. robbing you of your freedom, i.e. robbing you of the ability to connect. So yeah, you're making more, you can buy more things, you can go more places, but you cannot really connect because you don't have freedom of time. I think that's where those high depression rates come from. And Harvard has done all types of studies around it too. Like, capitalism is what's destroying us, not having a religion.
But that's still, no, but you have to think about, but that's the same point. Like, we're saying the same thing. Regardless of why we're disconnected, whether it's capitalism, whether it's trauma, whether it's programming, there's a lot of reasons why we're disconnected. I'm just saying that you were already connected because of the things that you were taught and how to connect, that you now have the freedom to say, I'm going to do A, B, and C. My point is that there are people that don't know how to connect. And the spirituality that I feel like is being toted is not teaching anyone really how to connect, because connecting does require some consistent ritual practice, whether or not it's based in a specific religion. I'm sure there's something that you do. Is there, like, what do you say you do to connect? Like, what do you do? Do you pray? Do you meditate? How do you, I think I've heard you say before that you like just talk to God at random times of the day. Like, you'll be in your car, you'll be anywhere, and you just like have a conversation.
Yeah, for me, it's constant communication. Just like you constantly will text. And Shane, I want to hear what you're saying, because I know you had something that you wanted to say. But for me, it's just like how I text my homegirls or text, my dude or something. That's how I have conversations with God. It's literally like a conversation. And where for me, it's always, hey, I need you, because I don't hear God clear as day most of the time. But for me, it's always I know that you have a purpose for my life. I'm totally cool in fulfilling what that is, but I'm going to just need you to guide my steps. And then when I feel like something ain't right, okay, well, what should we do now? So yeah, that's
let me say this. Everything needs a foundation. And one of my favorite groups of individuals to speak to are atheists, because I just find their thought process very interesting. And, no offense, but quite like hilarious. And I'm gonna tell you why. Everything needs a foundation, right? Like my mother goes into the kitchen and she just kind of takes some of this, some of that, whatever, boom, she got a cake, right? Now, I walk into the kitchen, I'm not getting a cake. Why? Because I have no foundation of cakery. It's not a word. We're gonna make it a word right now.
I think it is a word. I like cakery.
There's some words that should be words, but are not words, but we're gonna make them words. No, but that's the thing. I have no foundation of cakery. You get what I'm saying? She can go in without any measuring cups, without any cookbook or whatever the case is, and she can make one of the most amazing cakes you will ever have in your life. However, me, that's not the case. Reason that's not the case because I don't have a foundation of it. And it's just the same thing. Like it's really easy to say that you don't need something when you already have a foundation of it. It's just like having one thing I always hear atheists say, which is just mind-boggling to me, is, oh, we don't need religion to tell us that raping a woman is a bad thing to do. Yeah, you do. Because prior to religion, that's literally how we got y'all. We see you, we like you, we bash you over the head. Hopefully you survive hemorrhaging and drag you back to the, that's how men used to get you.
Oh no.
And after that, when we became more civilized, it was like, hey, Pops, look, I got this. Give me your girl. And be like, all right. You know what I mean? and so like it is because of our foundation as humanity in religion, in certain organized beliefs and groupthink. It's always funny, you know what I mean? I always see individuals that are against groupthink, but in order to be against groupthink, you have to be a part of another group. Anyways,
that's groupthink.
but that's the thing. Everything needs a foundation. And you say, like, your daughter, for instance, if she wants to go to church, then by all means you drop. Why would she want to go to church? You get what I'm saying? If there is no,
I want to.
If there is no introduction, more than likely, if there is no introduction to church, she's not gonna want to go to church.
That's not true, because there was no introduction to gymnastics or sports, and she wanted to do sports. There
was definitely introduction to sports and gymnastics. That's something.
No, there wasn't. It was something. No, she saw something and said, "This is what she wants to do." So just like she can see church, because my mother does church, so she sees church and wants to go. All right, sis, let's go. I don't do gymnastics, but I take and drop her.
Yeah, but see, that's what I'm saying though. But your mother, because she goes to church, that is the introduction. Like you say, you text your boo throughout the day, you talk to God throughout the day. Like you can't text your boo if you never met him. You get what I'm saying? Like now that you met him, now that you have, gone through the awkward phases of getting to know him or whatever the case is, you text him whatever and so on and so forth. But my whole point is just plain and simply that everything needs a foundation. There has to be some kind of introduction to something, and your introduction to God and who God is more than likely is going to come through some form of organized religion, whether it be, like I said, whether it be something that's very religious, if that's what your culture says, or something that's very non-religious, that's fun, that's hype. You know what I mean? I've seen churches that do choreography to Demi Lovato in the middle of church. You know what I mean? And like I ain't doing that, but that's how they get their people. You know what I mean? Like they have, you know what I mean? Like so depending on but the foundation has to be there somewhere. And like I said, you have a foundation. You may not like where you got it or how you got it, or circumstances surrounding you getting it. But you have a foundation, and that is why you are able to say, you know what, I don't need it.
Well, I feel like you do not have to do so through religion. There's nothing saying that I can't decide, because everybody has a longing. Everybody's spirit and soul pulls and desires to be connected. Period, point blank, hard stop, whether you are atheist, a Buddhist, Hindu, whoever, however, every person's spirit has a longing to connect to something. You do not necessarily have to become a part of a religion to research, to desire, to reach outside of yourself to connect. I'm not saying that religion isn't necessary, because I think when we had spoken before, you talked about I may be able to control and determine what my actions might be, but for the masses, that is something that they might not be able to do. And I agree with you, but I'm saying it still does not have to be a part of a particular religion in order for you to find it. Like for me, I didn't truly, honestly, if we being real, I didn't truly, honestly discover God for real until after I left religion. Yes, I did. I was a part of the practices. Yeah, I had read the Bible cover to cover. I didn't understand most of that shit when I was going to church all the time. And I wore the little white dresses like I was required to. And then I would let the little boys be playing under my skirt while I'm wearing the little white dress. So clearly it wasn't effective for me. It wasn't effective for me. But when I left religion, it wasn't a forced thing then. It was where I now desired to become and commune and go into relationship with God. So even now when I teach my daughter about God, I always inform her first, everything is about choice. If you decide you want to worship monkeys, I'm going to look at you and be like, okay, that's interesting. I'm going to still love you, but I'm going to be like, oh, that's interesting. That's not what I believe. This is what mommy believes. This is how mommy practices. This is Proverbs for me is one of the best, that's kind of maybe where you should start in your journey of trying to understand and grow in wisdom and things and knowledge and all that other jazz. But for me, I just have no desire to connect to a religion, to be a part of a group. And I'm not saying I'm against groupthink, but for me, I have always, if the group was going left, I'm going right, because he might, no, I'm good. I'm going to go to where it's not as much that I have to work through and battle through. And that's just been who I've been since I was a child.
Yeah, I can 100% understand your thought process. But I do think that thought process is sometimes sharing it causes other individuals, like I said, who don't have that foundation. There's still foundation. You talk about, when you found God. Yeah, most of us find God after the fact. We go through, and that's why you need it. That's why the tutors and governors are necessary. It's just like school. How many things did you learn after you graduated school? You know what I mean? But school, you still needed that foundation. And that's all I'm saying. Just the foundation of it. The 1 + 1 = 2 is what leads you to being able to, count to 1,000, count thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, whatever the case is. You learn so much after the fact. You understand why is this necessary after the fact. You know what I mean? Same thing in church. You talk about, wearing the white dress, you know what I mean? I was one of them little boys that was trying to see under the white dress. You know what I mean? It's just part of human interaction where stuff like that happens, no matter whether, and the reason is because it is very difficult to understand concepts like love, faithfulness, meekness, humility. It's so extremely difficult to understand those concepts as children. I often say, children don't really love you. They don't know how. They don't have the knowledge and the information to actually love you. They are dependent upon you. They know that you feed them. They know that you give them hugs and kisses, and it feels nice to get hugs and kisses. But for them to actually say, I genuinely love you, they don't have the wherewithal to do so. That's why they keep doing things that they're not supposed to do. That's why they disobey. That's why they, you know what I mean? Because of the concept of, once again, spirituality.
That's interesting. That's an interesting thing because then, that just sparks something else. That's an interesting point about children and love, because how many of us grow up and then have to like decide if we even want to interact with our parents as adults? When we now have the information, we're like, do I even like you for real? Like, do I have to interact with you? Like, do I need you in my life anymore? Because once you're not, no, but it's interesting, right? Like, once you're not dependent on them, and once you kind of have your own entity in a sense where you have all the autonomy in your life, you live your life and you don't really need them for anything. You kind of are at a crossroads where you're like, do I need you in my life?
No, but
like, are you absolutely necessary?
You cannot genuinely love somebody you need. You can't.
That's definitely a topic for another day.
Well, then you cannot love someone that you need.
You can't generate love someone because once again, love is pure, and if you filter it through anything, it now becomes tainted. You get what I'm saying? So your need for that individual taints your actual love for them, because once again,
interesting.
Going back to Bible, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. God can truly say he loves the world. He can truly say he loves you, because he definitely doesn't need you for anything.
And he ain't need the son either, because he was like, well, here, you go ahead and sacrifice yourself a little bit for me.
You know what I'm saying? So,
that's interesting.
So it's one of those situations where, once again, you cannot have a relationship without a foundation. There has to be a foundation somewhere.
Yeah. And for me, because I'm also not super religious. I don't like subscribe. I don't go to church every Sunday. But I do believe I had an awesome foundation with my upbringing, as tainted as it was, similar to Alecia's, where it was cult-like in a lot of ways. It was manipulative. You see people in leadership positions do very, very, very ungodly things. And I don't think I connected with God or a higher power until after the fact as well, Alechia. But my point is more so that the rituals and, my meditation every morning, my looking at holy scriptures and different things like that do help me to maintain the relationship with him. So I'm more so saying that religion has its place when it comes to the rituals and the principles that are within religion that do guide us and help us to create and maintain the relationship with a higher power. My point is that you can't really, it is not, let me not say you can't, because I believe you can do anything. It is very difficult to maintain and to connect to God when you don't have a foundation like you do, Alechia, because you're one group of people. And then it's hard to maintain it if you're not constantly doing some kind of ritual or something where you take time out of your day to dedicate to that power, just like you do to your husband, to your children. I'm just saying that it takes a little bit more work than I'm just a spiritual person because I believe in the universe and astrology. And I just decided I'm spiritual without putting any of the work in to maintain the relationship. And I'm just saying religion does help you understand what that work looks like.
I will say this, just to reiterate the foundation situation. What I'm noticing is that we have a lot of spirituality, but once again, with no foundation. That's why you have individuals that, they read the Bible, they burn sage, they have crystals, they have beads, they it's just kind of spirituality a la carte. You know what I mean? Just let me take a little bit of this, a little bit of that over there. What are you, a Cancer? Oh yeah, you're a Cancer, so definitely we can vibe because you're a Cancer. No, you can vibe because I'm not a jerk. That's not that nothing when I was born. But we just take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, take a piece of this and so forth, and just kind of throw it in the pot. And then at the end of the day, it's not even anything that's like really substantial to life. I have a friend of mine with crystals, and you bathe the crystals in the full moonlight at the beach. And then like a couple months go by, you ain't been to the beach. What happened to bathe in the crystals? We don't bathe the crystals no more. Like, you know what I mean? But that's a lot of what's going on. You know what I mean? When we talk about spirituality, especially nowadays, when there is no foundation to the situation.
It's not rooted. It's like it's not rooted in anything.
Rooted in nothing.
Really.
But I feel like you're not taking into account that religion does the same thing. Even now, it's pieces of this, pieces of that. Like even with the Bible, no, you cannot take everything that's in the Bible and do it because somebody going to jail. Because in Deuteronomy, it says stone your kids if they don't obey. So it's still pieces and parts that you have to apply as far as to what makes sense for where we are now. I feel like it's doing the same thing. There are pieces that work and pieces that don't. And for me, it's whatever works for you, do that. Because in the end, I feel like we all gonna get back to our source. And for me, my source is God. I feel like I'm gonna get back to God and He gonna be like, what did you do with what I gave you? Because to one he gave 5 talents, to one he gave 3 talents, and to one he gave 1 talent.
Hey,
and what we're supposed to do is take the talents and the gifts that he gave us and serve the people that he sent us to serve.
I agree.
For me, it's not through a religion, but you will know that I am a lover of God based on how I treat you and how I treat myself. You'll know that I am the embodiment of love because of who I am. But I don't have to be a part of a religion to embody the love that I feel God has for me and for those who he created. That's
but the key word that I think you said is you believe everyone should do what works. And my point is that there is a lot of things that are clearly not working. So my advice, and I admonish everyone to maybe explore other options, because if you are still depressed and if you are still miserable, maybe the crystals aren't working for you. Maybe the sage is too dry. I don't know, but maybe there's another approach you might need to consider, because I'm saying that even in the spirituality, because I agree with you, Alechia, like maybe Buddhism isn't your thing. Maybe this isn't your thing. Maybe you tried Muslim and that didn't work out, whatever, or you tried Islam and that didn't work out. My point is that I think we're getting so stuck in the PR of religion, or the bad PR of religion, that we're neglecting the journey of maybe trying to explore other options within religion, within spirituality. And I think it's to our own detriment, where we're just grasping for something and hoping that it works and throwing stuff at the wall, when there are already foundations set that you can find. And within that, you can grow and explore and find your own connection, because there's already a foundation. I just feel like we're working backwards a lot of times when there's already a lot of things in place that can really help us connect a lot easier, as opposed to trying to come up with, like, you're trying to reinvent the wheel. At this point, not you, but people in general try to reinvent the spiritual wheel when there are things in place for us that can help us make the process a lot more less confusing.
Yeah, I think religion needs an Olivia Pope kind of spin some things. No, but I'll say this finally, that when it comes to religion, I go to church every Sunday. I don't miss that thing. I go every Sunday. But I think the reason why I think it's necessary that I don't miss it is because I'm not just trying to live it, I'm also trying to share it.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that a personal relationship can't be shared. You have to share principles, concepts, strategies, systems. Those are the things that have to be shared. Mm-hmm. Just like any company, any Fortune 500 company, whatever the case is, there's one guy that's killing it. He's just greater than everybody else, but he can't be duplicated. And I think it's important that we have systems that we can duplicate, and then from there, however, those systems need to also not make it where this is the only way, this is what you got to do. If you don't do it this way, then you're going to hell. Either you turn or you burn. Get right or get left. You know what I mean? I think if one thing that I think religious institutions to do, churches on a whole, is allow people to find their expression or their relationship with God, how they find it. But once again, are you trying to just live, Alechia, or is it something where you feel like you have a responsibility to share?
Well, I'm just trying to live. I'm going to leave the sharing up to you because God didn't call that to be my ministry because I be cussing folks out. And so I don't think he wants me to be I can't be on the first lady ministry.
Alechia, I do think in your own way you do share, right? In your expression of your life. Yeah, I think I this all the time because I always tell her that for somebody that doesn't believe in religion, she quote the Bible like somebody's old grandma. Like all of a sudden you're in a conversation with her talking about all this stuff and she's like, well, you got to pick up your bed and walk. And you're like, what?
Yeah, only thing you're missing, Alechia, is
she is good for it, So actually, Alechia, I believe that you do have your way of sharing God. And I think you just do it in a different way. And I think that's what we're all supposed to be doing in essence, is sharing our relationship with God, whether it's through spirituality, whether it's through religion. I think that's what it's all about. And I love, Alechia, how you put that it is about finding our peace and our purpose and serving others when we do that. And I do think that is the ultimate way of sharing. Thank you so much, Shane, for coming on. And like I said, I just love how you break things down and make it simple and easy to digest. I just feel like this is a conversation that we probably going to have again and have like a part 2, part 3, something, because there's so much to uncover and we can maybe bring some other people on with different perspectives because it is just a fully loaded topic. It's hard to get it all in an hour. So thank you so much. Alechia, did you have anything else you wanted to touch on or say? Or anything?
This was good. No, this was phenomenal. I just want you guys to remember, this is how you can respectfully disagree. This is how you do it. Okay.
Yes.
Y'all take notes.
Shane, did you want to say anything or leave the people with anything? Do you want to do like a benediction? What do we do?
How can we stay connected with you, Shane? Like, where can we stay connected with you on the socials or on the interwebs?
I am Shane Walters on everything. Just keep it real simple. I am Shane Walters. If you're looking for me, that's how you find me.
And you're on the radio too. What about your radio? Aren't you?
Yes, I have a radio program, Omega Radio in Broward. It's 101.9. In Miami, it's 102.3. In Honduras, it's 98.7. And I don't know what the call sign is where you are, but it's Omega Radio.
Just Google it, people. We have that
Omega Radio. The show is called The Bridge from 11 to 1 because I feel like that's part of my calling to kind of bridge the gap between different age groups, different religions, different people, different thought processes. And so I'm on the radio 11 to 1 every weekday on Omega Radio. And like I said, easy to find it. And the one thing I want to say more than anything else is that, listen, the Bible says in 1 John 4, verse 7 and 8, beloved, let us love one another. For love is of God, and everyone that loves is born of God and knows God. He that loves not doesn't know God, for God is love. So whether it is you're taking the spirituality route, the religious route, the finding yourself route, you have the foundation of everything has to be love.
Absolutely.
Amen. Okay. Drops the mic. We don't have no collection plates, but
I take Cash App.
That was perfect. Thank you. We're just close on that. Thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Triggered AF, the podcast. We will see you next time.
Yes. Thank you for seeing us. Bye, guys.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Triggered AF. Remember, don't be consumed by your triggers. Confront it and then work to release it. Whether you leave us more triggered than you came or you're feeling like you've been open to a new perspective, our hope is that you've grown. Make sure to share this episode with a friend who's trigger happy and tag us while you're listening. We can't wait to hear from you. Until next week, pull it together, girl.